"Gentlemen," said he, "although a companion is agreeable, perfect freedom is sometimes still more agreeable. I come to say that today, and for the remainder of the carnival, I leave the carriage entirely at your disposal. The host will tell you I have 3 or 4 more, so that you will not inconvenience me in any way. Make use of it, I pray you, for your pleasure or your business." The young men wished to decline, but they could find no good reason for refusing an offer which was so agreeable to them. The Count of Monte Cristo remained a quarter of an hour with them, conversing on all subjects with the greatest ease. He was, as we have already said, perfectly well acquainted with the literature of all countries. A glance at the walls of his salon proved to Franz and Albert that he was a connoisseur of pictures. A few words he let fall showed them that he was no stranger to the sciences, and he seemed much occupied with chemistry. The two friends did not venture to return the Count the breakfast he had given them. It would have been too absurd to offer him in exchange for his excellent table the very inferior one of Signor Pastrini. They told him so frankly, and he received their excuses with an air of a man who appreciated their delicacy. Albert was charmed with the Count's manners, and he was only prevented from recognizing him for a perfect gentleman by reason of his varied knowledge. I gotta pull apart that last sentence for a second. That last sentence being, Albert was charmed with the Count's manners, as he was only prevented from recognizing him for a perfect gentleman by reason of his varied knowledge. So they're conversing, Albert distracted by the razzle-dazzle that Dante is putting on. He was only prevented from recognizing him for a perfect gentleman by reason of his varied knowledge. What does that mean? Okay, let's break it down. Wow, I feel like I'm in grade school again. Albert was charmed with the Count's manners. Okay, great. That makes sense. No problem there. He was only prevented from recognizing him for a perfect gentleman, so he's not seeing him as a perfect gentleman, right? Okay, so he's charmed by him, but he doesn't see him as a perfect gentleman. Why? By reason of his varied knowledge. So it's saying he doesn't see him to be a perfect gentleman because he knows too much? Like, this dude's seen too much shit in his life. There's no way he can be a perfect gentleman. All the executions he's seen. Okay, but why would Albert flag that? That's interesting to me. And since it's the last sentence of today's passage, maybe we'll get more tomorrow, but this is me. You're hearing my, inner thought process verbalized aloud, and sure, it's not that entertaining for you, but this is literally what goes through my head when I read books. It feels like something I need to flag. Like, this is a turning point for Albert, or at least it's Dumas giving us one of the first indications of Albert seeing a red flag with Dante, right? Or is my read on this completely wrong? Hold on, I'm going to do some more research in real time here. Let's just find out. Okay. I didn't fully get answers, but a little bit more insight. So I was looking up, what makes a perfect gentleman, especially in 19th century Europe. Okay, and you are expected to be educated, obviously, cultured, duh, but not, so intensely knowledgeable about everything. To the point where, earlier in this page, it says that he was particularly fond of chemistry, not just science, and not able to talk about the things that are going on with science, but he knows how chemistry works. I'm wondering if that's pushing to the point of obsession. I'm a reader of a lot of weird tales, as you know, from the Patreon. And a lot of the scientist characters, or the fringe, the characters that live on the fringe of these stories, are sometimes people who get really obsessed with one particular thing. I'm thinking of a story I read recently called The White Lady, where a botanist gets really obsessed with creating a new form of plant life, where he crossbreeds all of these different plants that have very subtle human traits, and in order to make a human-like plant called the White Lady. That dude is not going to be seen as a perfect gentleman. He's obsessed. He's in his lab. He's completely got blinders on for what he's doing, which makes him a little bit suspicious, and in that story, rightly so. So I'm wondering if Albert is when he hears, or it's said here that Dante has literature of all countries. this almost is giving me like mega billionaire vibes, which is true. But I mean, even in 2026, where it's like your Mark Zuckerbergs, your Jeff Bezoses, your Elon's Musk, other terrible people ruining this world, have the means at their disposal to literally explore anything they want. And that means what they choose to go deep on is more revealing of their character than the average person. And so it's easier to see red flags for things. And I'm wondering if Albert here is kind of like, because I can't imagine he's so socially adept that he's having like sophisticated thoughts about Dante here. I'm wondering if it's just more like a pick a lane, my dude. You're into chemistry, you're into literature, you're into executions, you're into traveling, you're into wealth. I mean, not to even mention the collector of pictures, which I think has different implications in 2026 than it does in 19th century Italy. But what's the calculation going through Albert's head right now? Like, no normal person knows this much about this many things. Is he starting to unravel the fact that Dante has a bit of a disguise on? This could be like the very start of destabilizing Dante's identity as the Count specifically. Okay. Do I want to go into abridgment stuff? We still got a ways to go in this chapter. I think I will save more abridgment talk for another episode. But one thing I didn't talk about that happened in this passage is that Dante, the Count, is on his way somewhere for some reason. And I would almost call this a humble brag, but like we've mentioned before on this show, it just also feels like matter of fact. Like, I have 4 carriages. I'm not going to use all mine. So if you want this one, please do what you want to with it for your business, for your pleasure, whatever, man. Like, it's not going to inconvenience me. I've got plenty. But where do we think Dante is going? Clearly, it's some clandestine thing. This is after the execution. Peppino has disappeared into the crowd. Who knows where Vampa is? Who was that Greek lady? Who was the blue domino in the window? So many questions, and Dante, being a little mysterious man of mystery, is how I phrased that, doing some weird stuff here. And I'm wondering if he's like, is this part of it? Is this part of the disguise and part of the manipulation where he wants them to know he's up to something and is being so blatant by trying to distract them with wealth and resources? Or is he legitimately trying to distract them by the razzle-dazzle so that they don't question what he's doing? Because it seems like it would have been in his power to like not involve Franz and Albert in any of this if he didn't want to be known or seen. Or like just go put on another disguise. Or just have your servant come in and say that you weren't available. Like, why show up and make the point that you're maybe it's a social thing that I've lost over, a century and a half since this book was written. Who knows? The fact is Dante is leaving and giving the carriage to Franz and Albert. Okay, that's all I've got for today. Join me here tomorrow. Until then, okay, goodbye. The Countdown of Monte Cristo is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. This show is produced, edited, and hosted by Landon Solano. The original text of The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. Theme song by Magic Solo. If you want to support the show and others like it, visit patreon.com/gruntworkpod. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.